Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's Young here and welcome to a Zelda Wii U trailer analysis. We finally got our first look at the game during Nintendo's E3 2014 digital event, and it was glorious. So glorious in fact that I was compelled to do an in-depth analysis of the teaser footage. There is a lot to talk about, so without further ado, let's dive right into it. I would like to begin by talking about the game's gorgeous art style. It's like they blended together the various art styles from past 3D Zelda games to create something truly unique. It mixes together the impressionistic textures of Skyward Sword, the cel shading of Wind Waker, the grand scope and realistic models of Twilight Princess, and the fairy tale story feel of Ocarina of Time. I would describe the overall style as impressionistic photorealism. It's truly magnificent. Now, if you look closely at the background, you will be able to spot various elements indicating that the game's artistic direction may be vastly influenced by a blend of both Eastern and Western cultures. For example, these individuals in the background are wearing conical hats that are traditionally worn by farmers from Asian countries like China, Japan, and Korea, but the houses in the background are clearly influenced by Western culture. Alongside these cultural elements, the environment also contains a number of landmarks that will be familiar to Zelda fans. Most obvious of them all is the volcano in the background, which is clearly Death Mountain, which seems to be situated in a similar location to the one in Ocarina of Time, assuming that the camera is facing north. Another landmark lies to the left, where we can see what's clearly some kind of lake reflecting the light from the sun. If I had to guess, I would say this could be Lake Hylia. Hopefully the Zoras will make a return in their more graceful form for this latest adventure. There is one more landmark I would like to point out, which is easy to miss since it's way over here in the distance. I don't know about you, but the pointy nature of these edifices seems to be clear indication that this is Hyrule Castle, likely surrounded by Hyrule Castle Town. Like with Death Mountain, Hyrule Castle seems to be situated in a similar location to the one found in Ocarina of Time, assuming that again the camera is facing north. Apart from these, I can't say I can spot anything that seems familiar, although we do eventually get a glimpse of what's likely the forest area of Zelda Wii U, which based on the route that Link took, lies to the southeast part of the map, which is also similar to Ocarina of Time's layout. Now there is one landmark in the background that is unfamiliar to me, and that's this wooden tower-like structure in the background. At the very top is a windmill weather vane, which not only points to the direction of the wind, but perhaps also provides electrical power to the denizens below. Another function of this structure is perhaps to serve as a watchtower, although it doesn't look like there's anybody up there. It sure looks like it'll provide a nice view of Hyrule Field. Speaking of which, Hyrule Field is absolutely humongous, and the best part is that everything you see in the distance is reachable. There are also a lot of little details within the game world that really bring it to life, from the shadows that the clouds cast, the impressive lighting effects, the swaying of the grass and trees, the butterflies flying in the background, to the farmers and goats going about their daily lives. Also impressive is just how varied the landscape is. There's everything from forests, hills, cliffs, mountains, volcanoes, lakes, and even a ravine, and these are all places players will be able to visit and behold. But perhaps what's caught my attention more than anything else is the grass. Not only does it look beautiful from the new art style and sway realistically, there is a ton of it. In past games, fields of grass would simply amount to some green texture on the ground, with the occasional patches of grass that players can cut down, but here, there's just grass everywhere. It makes me wonder if players can cut all of it. Well, the grass in the distance does look kinda short, so I don't think players will be cutting those, but some of the grass in the foreground sure look tall enough to cut. Standing in the middle of Hyrule Field is none other than our hero and protagonist, Link, who is riding on who is likely our favorite horse, Epona. I know there's been a lot of discussion in regards to whether this is actually Link, due to what Aonuma said about how he never stated that the character is Link, but in a later interview, Aonuma revealed that he made that statement jokingly, and then indirectly confirmed that this character really is Link. So there, mystery solved. Eventually, the peaceful scenery is interrupted by a crash or boom of sorts, which startles Epona and causes a flock of birds to flee. From the vast field, out comes a strange monster that looks formidable enough to be a boss, or at least a sub-boss. This begs the question, will players encounter bosses outside dungeons from time to time? This footage seems to suggest so. If not, at least players can expect to encounter some tough and formidable enemies in the field on occasions. Now notice how before it attacks, the monster's head spins 360 degrees like it's scanning the area or something. This, on top of the fact that it shoots these blue lasers that resemble those found in Skyward Sword, makes me think that the enemy is some kind of enhanced version of the ancient, yet technologically advanced BMOs found in the Lanairu mining facility. In fact, some of the stuff we see here bears so much resemblance to Skyward Sword's ancient technology that people are already theorizing that Zelda Wii U could be a Skyward Sword prequel. An interesting proposal, but it's still too early to talk about the game's place in the timeline. Now, I must say, I love the reactions in the background as the monster prepares to attack. On the left, you can see the goats perceiving danger and running away, and once shots are fired, the goats on the right scatter along with the farmer. There is a good chance that their reactions were all scripted for the sake of presentation, but I hope that the final game will feature a game world that reacts like this, because it really works wonders in terms of making the world feel alive. Oh, and one neat graphical detail is the way the grass reacts to the shockwave of the blast, another small detail that immensely adds to immersion. And I must say that the fire and particle effects look absolutely stunning. Now, notice how after the fire from the laser blast dissipates, the grass around it actually gets burned off. Aonuma has stated many times that except for the camera angle, the entire footage was filmed from actual gameplay, so it's safe to expect that this kind of environmental destruction will be a big part of the game. The monster proceeds by making pursuit to where Link is headed, the forest area of the game, which, as mentioned before, seems to be located on the southeast side of the map based on the route that Link took. Inside the forest lie what look like a number of ancient structures, possibly ruins. The stuff on the left here has these swirling patterns that vastly resemble the patterns engraved on the monster, perhaps suggesting some kind of connection. On the right lies an ancient statue of some kind of bird. Maybe it's just me, but the statue reminds me of the Loftwings from Skyward Sword. And there comes Link and Epona. Something new about Epona is that she now leans when making sharp turns, a small detail which goes a long way in making her look nimbler and more lifelike. As the creature makes pursuit, we can bear witness to more of the game's destructible environment feature, although on a much larger scale this time. It almost looks too good to be true. I hope Aonuma isn't pulling my strings. If this really is accurate representation of what we'll see during gameplay, then holy crap. We are then shown another look at the creature's power, and this time, instead of shooting the target at a specific area, he drags it along in a similar fashion to BMO's, further suggesting some kind of connection between the two. Here is a closer look at the fire, along with the smoke that it produces. The fire itself has this very bloomy effect that goes really well with the game's overall aesthetic. It's also quite impressive how the fire changes the lighting around it, really showing off the game's dynamic lighting system. Now here is our first good close-up look of Link. I think it's safe to say that this is pretty early in the game considering Link isn't wearing the hero's clothes or wielding any of the hero's equipment. Link's shield, for example, isn't the Hylian shield but rather a more primitive banded shield. The banded shield may suggest that a crafting system similar to Skyward Sword's will make a return, allowing players to buy and upgrade Link's equipment as they progress further into the game. Now, I find it interesting that it is Epona who is carrying all of the equipment instead of Link and his magical video game pocket of infinite storage. Perhaps this is indicative of a new inventory system. I am thinking of a system in which Link is forced to rely on Epona to carry most of his things due to limited inventory slots or carrying capacity for weapons, items, and equipment, with Epona acting as a sort of portable storage for his stuff, from which he can switch weapons, items, and equipment in and out of his inventory. This would not only encourage foresight and preparation before engaging in dangerous activities like heading into battle or tackling a dungeon, it would also give rise to different playstyles through different combinations of weapons and items. At the very least, based on what Aonuma has said in the past, it's safe to expect that the inventory system will borrow elements from Link Between Worlds' more open and flexible inventory system. Alright, we have talked enough about the horse and the load it's carrying, so now let's talk about Link. Link's adventure often begins from within some kind of peaceful forest area, but there are various aspects of Link's apparel here that may suggest that in this game, he comes from the desert. Let's begin by taking a look at his wristband. As many Zelda fans have pointed out already, they resemble those worn by Ocarina of Time's Ganondorf, who is of Gerudo origin. Furthermore, the pattern on the wristband can also be found on female Gerudos as well, so perhaps the wristbands Link is wearing hints that he spent most of his life in the desert. Also, Link's apparel as a whole just seems perfect for the desert. His feet are well protected by sturdy boots, and his body is completely shielded from sunlight through various layers of light clothing that also keep him cool. But what completes the picture of a desert outfit is the hooded cape. Doesn't it look like the ones that people in fantasy settings wear in the desert for protection against the sunlight or the sand? And since these clearly aren't Hiro's clothes, his current outfit is likely native of his hometown, which perhaps resides near the desert. For the cherry on top, when Link does take his hood off, he is wearing a ponytail. It could mean nothing since we have seen Link wear a similar hairstyle in mangas and whatnot, but a good reason for a person with long hair to wear a ponytail is if it's hot. So perhaps the reason why Link wears a ponytail is because he's gotten used to wearing his hair like that from his time in the hot desert. So bottom line, a combination of the Gerudo-like wristbands, Link's light yet extensive clothing that seems to keep the body cool while protecting it from direct sunlight, and the ponytail all give me the impression that this Link was raised in the desert. Now, my theory does have one glaring contradiction: Link's skin color. From certain angles, he does seem to have a slight tan, but overall, it's just too light to corroborate my theory. I am also not an expert on desert dress code, so perhaps I'm reaching too far, but a Link from the desert would certainly be an interesting new twist to a familiar character. Alright, so moving on, the creature finally catches up to Link, and once again we are shown some impressive environmental destruction. Link, who has had enough, finally takes off his hooded cape, and as he does so, we can kind of see some of the designs on it. Unfortunately, no one seems to know what these markings represent, but they do have the same sharp and squiggly aesthetics as the markings on Link's blue shirt. If I had to guess, I would say these markings have to do with the culture of the tribe, town, or village that Link comes from. So off comes the hood as Link quickly and swiftly draws his bow and 2 bomb arrows from the quiver on his back. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Link has ever physically worn a quiver in-game. He would normally draw a bow sort of out of nowhere from his magical video game pocket of infinite storage, but that may all change in this game, and from the looks of it, Link will wear the quiver around the hip or buttocks area instead of the back as most archers do. Right behind him is the high-tech arrow that he uses later in the trailer, perhaps outside the quiver due to its size. Link proceeds by shooting the 2 bomb arrows, temporarily stunning the creature, a moment which is visually enhanced by the particle effects that fill the air. It's also interesting to note that the fire in the background does not dissipate, remaining there for the rest of the video. Either Nintendo's really taking destructible environments to a whole new level, or the forest fire is there for presentation purposes. We'll see. Anyways, Link quickly takes advantage of the situation by swiftly readying the high-tech arrow. I find it interesting that he only has one of these, perhaps suggesting that these arrows aren't common and that they are extremely powerful when used. Also intriguing is Link's sword chilling on Epona's back. It's clearly not the Master Sword based on the scabbard design and the hilt. So no hero's clothes, no Hylian shield, and no Master Sword, clear indications that this may take place close to the beginning of the game when Link is still wearing his native clothes. Something else that caught my eye is this sleeping bag. It could just be there for aesthetic purposes, but I think it will serve as a gameplay mechanic. Perhaps Link can use the sleeping bag to make camp in certain areas of the world map, granting players the ability to fast forward time and to skip from morning to night and anything in between. After all, there is clearly a day and night cycle in this game, which means time-specific quests will likely make a return, so having a sleeping bag that can fast forward time would alleviate the problem of having to annoyingly wait for sunrise or sundown. We are then shown a new move that Link can perform in conjunction with Epona. You can see that Epona is using her body to propel Link into the air, allowing Link to get a better angle for a kill shot. I hope this isn't just a cinematic thing. I mean, I don't care much for the flashy camera angles and the slow motion, but I do hope this is a move that players will be able to perform in-game. Not only does it look ultra badass, but it could also bring about new puzzle elements like using Epona to propel Link to normally unreachable areas. As is typical in Zelda games, the monster's weakness is likely the giant glowing eye, which is exactly what Link seems to be aiming for. Smart kid. In this next shot, we are given a much closer look at the high-tech arrow, which can be activated by pulling its trigger, as shown in the footage. Notice how similar the arrow's design looks to the creature. Both feature similar engravings that glow with the same orange light, and both feature this futuristic blue beam that produces this distinct circular aura before activation. Clearly, the creature and the arrow originate from the same civilization. I know there are many people who have expressed interest in a futuristic Zelda, and while I don't think we'll see a sci-fi Zelda game anytime soon, Zelda Wii U seems to be the next best thing, with its mix of medieval fantasy and ancient advanced technology. The trailer ends with this final shot showing a close-up of Link without the hood, who really does look significantly more feminine due to his softer facial features, especially where the eyes are concerned. But there is very little doubt that this is a man and that this is Link. Now here's a fun fact. This is the first 3D Zelda game that features a Link with long side bangs. Until now, the long side bangs were only present on Links from 2D style Zelda games. Another fun fact, and this one most of you probably know, is that Link wore a similar blue shirt in The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. But there are significant differences that set them apart, such as the different engravings, the different sleeve lengths, and the fact that Zelda Wii U shirt resembles the hero's clothes in style and design, especially with a long sleeve undershirt, while the one in Wind Waker just kinda looks like a regular shirt. One final fun fact is that in this game, Link is right-handed like in Skyward Sword, as noted by the fact that in this footage, Link shoots arrows with his right hand while holding the bow with his left. I find this to be rather strange, considering that Zelda Wii U is unlikely to use motion controls. It's not a big deal for me, but I know Zelda fans like it when Link is left-handed, like in the most recent Zelda game, Link Between Worlds. Maybe this game will give players the option to choose Link's dominant hand, although I've heard that implementing such a feature is more complicated than it sounds. Finally, I would like to direct your attention to the leather strap that wraps around Link's body. Normally, the strap would hold Link's sword, but in this footage, it's not holding anything, and mainly seems to be there as decoration. And it's not as if Link doesn't have a sword, it's just that he doesn't have it equipped. Perhaps this is indicative of a revamped inventory system, in which Link can switch items, weapons, and equipment in and out. Perhaps Link doesn't have to have the sword equipped at all times, and perhaps moving around with a lighter load comes with its own advantages, like perhaps a nimbler and more agile Link. Food for thought. And with that, I would like to conclude this trailer analysis, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to let our nation know in the comments below your own theories on the new Zelda footage, and please be sure to let us know if there are any mistakes that I made or anything that I missed. And to be further updated on Zelda Wii U, be sure to join the nation and subscribe to Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much, and Young out.